The graduation address gives us the opportunity to hear from a most distinguished member of our alumni community. We're very fortunate today. The address will be delivered by Ms. Rachel Bowditch. Ms. Bowditch is an experienced consultant working across the corporate and creative sectors. She initially chose roles that indulged her love of travel and cultures, including working for companies such as Oracle and Deloitte. She then worked in further new roles such as restructuring British Telecom and launching the London Metal Exchange's clearinghouse. A love of problem solving led Ms. Bowditch to launch Alice Bow insoles, a range of luxury Italian leather insoles made in London. And I got up this morning and I had no intention of divulging to several hundred people that I actually need some insoles in these very ordinary black shoes that I'm wearing today. I'm not sure they need to be Italian luxury ones, but if you can give me a little bit of advice, Rachel, that would be terrific. But this particular brand went global overnight in 2015. It now has customers in over 70 countries. Ms. Bowditch also has supported numerous multi-million launches and increased long-term sustainability for many businesses. I now have much pleasure in inviting Ms. Rachel Bowditch to deliver the graduation address.
Greetings. Chancellor Mr. Simon McKeon, Senior Pro Vice-Chancellor Academic Professor Slavko Zgerbis, Dean of the Faculty of Arts Sharon Pickering, distinguished guests, members of council, members of faculty, and dear graduates. I also acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, the Kulin Nation. Monash graduates of 2017, I'm thrilled and honoured to be here with you on your graduation day. About 20 years ago, I sat in Robert Blackwood Hall, as you are now. Having completed my honours in European Studies, specialising in German and Eastern European politics, my honours thesis was on changing Eastern German masculinities, which chimes in with one we heard about today. I'd recently returned from Berlin, where I completed an exchange semester at the Free University. It was 95-96 and the city was still divided into two sections, with the Berlin Wall still standing through part of town. To be in the heart of everything I'd studied was fascinating. And one of the most memorable classes from my time in Berlin was cultural studies, led by a wacky-looking professor who had mad, billowing white hair that looked like he stuck his finger in the electric socket. Seriously, I can't remember his name, I remember what he looks like. Yep. On the first day we met at Sanssouci on the edge of Berlin, a park containing not one, but two palaces and a variety of other follies. It had been built in the 1700s, a time where they loved to travel and to show off big time. Coming from Australia, I'd never seen anything so grand. There was an orangery to keep the citrus trees warm in winter, and there was a pyramid just standing there in the garden that was an ice house. So imagine that, you have an ice house that is the shape of the pyramid in the garden just because you can. Absolutely bonkers. We walked across Brücke, which was the former border between East and West on the Potsdam side of Berlin. He parked his car by the side of the road and opened the boot to reveal tins of biscuits and bottles of red wine. Can you imagine the middle of the day and your professor's giving you bottles of red wine to drink? It's fantastic. And whilst we stood, it was Germany, not Australia. And whilst we stood there enjoying ourselves, he just quietly dropped into conversation that had we stood where we were less than 10 years before, we would have been shot by a sniper from the window just over there. I, coming from Australia, had real difficulty comprehending this. I'd grown up in a country where I'd never experienced war. I'd seen a gun once, and that was on my uncle's farm, and that was used to shoot foxes, not people. And whilst I'd studied the facts, and of course I knew everything that had happened in Berlin, the reality of being there, of actually feeling the experience, of meeting people for whom this was their daily life not very long before, was completely unforgettable. So on my graduation day, I was probably thinking one of a few things. Firstly, I decided that whilst I was graduating, I wasn't ready to become a grown-up yet. No way. So from Monash, I continued to a Master of International Business at Swinburne, where once again, I did the last semester as an exchange semester in Germany, but this time in Reutlingen in the south. That was 1998, start of an overseas trip from which I've never fully returned. The second thing I was probably thinking, and I do remember thinking this, was that I had this whole life thing all sorted out. Yeah, I knew it. I would somehow magically, by the age of 32, be a partner in a management consultancy, be married, have 2.5 kids and a mortgage on a quarter-acre block. Yeah, very Australian. Yeah? I'd ticked off life's big milestones and that would be it. Who knew what I thought I would do after that? After all, 32 seemed really old, and I'm not sure my brain could compute much beyond that. Now, to cut a long story short, and it's already been alluded to, I didn't hit any of those milestones. So you could say that by my own accounts, I was a big fat failure. So what had I actually been doing all this time? So after finishing my study in Reutlingen, I moved to Dublin in the booming Celtic Tiger years. I joined Oracle, a US tech company, to work on setting up their European-wide finance organisation. Now, this wasn't out of some deep love of databases or finance systems, but rather they offered me travel. And as an Australian in Europe, I was going to make the most of it. And when the travel slowed down, I promptly told them that I was bored and that I was likely to leave, and I think I said it probably quite as eloquently as that. So they offered me a role in England with more travel. And I ended up working on projects in over 17 countries and racking up enough air miles and hotel points to pay for all my personal travel during that time. It's an absolute bonus. I made the most of Europe. From IT, I moved to Deloitte, finally becoming a management consultant like I'd originally planned, and working on large-scale merger and restructuring projects. I then went to the metal exchange, the world's oldest metal exchange, as a freelance consultant to set up their clearinghouse and lead aspects of their merger with the Hong Kong exchange. I developed a reputation as the smiling Aussie who had the ability to get stuff done. Yep, they thought I was deceptive, short, female, Australian, but I was effective. So just bear it in mind, you don't need to be tall. So whilst I was at the Alumni, I developed a real interest in entrepreneurship and startups and the women's shoe industry. Having worn high heels for years, I just really couldn't get my head around why they were so uncomfortable. Many stylish heels didn't have padding, and the insoles you'd get were ugly or ineffective. And I just didn't get it. You know, form and function, when people were willing to spend so much money, should be married together. This was the time of the global financial crisis, as Australia calls it. We just called it the recession over in England. And whilst Australia boomed, London suffered big time. People were laid off, businesses closed left, right and centre. But somehow many folks who'd sat in my idea for years thought that this was the prime opportunity for them to strike out on their own. They'd heard about the cult of the entrepreneur and wanted to be part of it. But often they hadn't actually looked under the bonnet to see what it would entail, what it really required. Many thought it was easy, and many thought it was a great escape from corporate life. Being a bit of a business nerd, I knew I wanted to set up my own thing longer term around the shoes, but I knew that I wanted to understand the nuts and bolts of running one of these types of businesses. So I took a year out from my corporate life and worked with various startups to develop the skills needed. I went to Caldwainers College, where Jimmy Choo and other luminaries have studied, the world-renowned college in London, for shoemaking, and went on research trips to Italy and Spain. If you're going to do something you love, then choose countries you love travelling to. Yeah? Seriously. And I starting a shoe range can cost 150,000 Aussie. So I decided to start with insoles, very unglamorous as they were, so I could get a product to market without spending so much money. I started prototyping, testing all sorts of leathers and padding. I created a little template of the insole shape and went around Selfridges and all the London department stores, putting it into shoes, seeing if you get the right fit across the different brands. People looked at me like I was weird. I just told them I was doing a research project and just kept going. I got my first website up, made some insoles, started doing market stalls and pop-ups to get customer feedback. Word of mouth spread, but slowly. When people saw the insoles and experienced the product, they got it. They were bought in once they touched and felt it. But it was hard getting reach beyond that. People just didn't expect to find an insole that was actually good looking and that worked, and I'd inadvertently created a new market category. In person, I could sell really, really well, but PR and marketing were not my strong points. And instead of spending all the time developing those areas, I decided to hire a PR agency and do a big push for later in the year. Sort of timed in with Christmas, festive season, wearing lots of heels around then. And then it all changed. June 10th, 2015, I woke up like any other day. I was doing a freelance consultancy gig at the time, checked my iPad just as you do when getting up, and normally there'd be at most a couple of orders for Alice Bowes. But this morning there were pages and pages. I just kept scrolling. Unbeknownst to me, overnight there was press in the US reporting that the Duchess of Cambridge was a fan of Alice Bow insoles. Yeah, I know. I hadn't thunk it, you know. The Kate effect hit us and we literally went global, like literally overnight. It's the stuff you hear of but never think actually happens. And from this US article, the press just kept on rolling. I'd wake up, you know, Vanity Fair UK to Elle Italy and Japan, Vogue Brazil, many others. Finally, Channel 7 News as well. So, you know, we went truly global. And it just kept going. But the list-loving, order-controlling side of my personality wanted to stop any further orders coming in whilst I got everything organised. Because I was in a flat, to be honest. But my partner and a friend convinced me to let it roll. I put a note on the website saying there's a 6-week lead time for all orders to give me some time to sort things out. They also convinced me, and I'm not quite sure in hindsight about this, that I should still go on holiday the following week. As it might be one of the last I'd have for a while if this thing kept up. So there I was in lovely Guadeloupe in the Caribbean. You can imagine was supposed to be a relaxing holiday. Up at 5 a.m. every morning, answering customer emails and ringing around my suppliers in Italy, Spain and the UK like mad, begging them to send me leather and get me materials to me ASAP so I could deal with this rush of orders. The good thing was that I'd shared my passion with them from the start, and they were thrilled for me. They were genuinely thrilled. And they literally pulled out all stops to try and make it happen. So whilst I was away, there were all these samples arriving in London, I was being sent photos of things and we were working like mad. But on a week-long holiday, I would normally read 2 or 3 books. I read about 3 pages this trip. And it's a book I started on the last day and then decided I didn't actually like it. So Alice Bow HQ at the time, you can imagine all these orders coming in, it was 2 desks in a shared studio space in an old printworks in East London. Our studio sent an email around asking everyone for help. People lent us their desks and workspaces, and we got a team of 10 folks together to make and ship the insoles. And I say we, but really it was still me at this stage. During the day, I was still going to my consulting gig because I didn't know if this was a bubble for Alice Bow or if it was the start of something more long-term. So I would get dressed in the morning in the suit, go off, do my consulting gig like nothing had ever happened. Go home in the evenings, stay up answering customer emails till about 4 a.m. I ran on adrenaline for months. I don't think I got a proper night's sleep till November. Over June and July, we received orders for over 20,000 pairs of insoles from over 60 countries, all which would be made in the small East London studio space. Crazy. Crazy, bonkers, I still don't know quite how to describe it, but all of the above. So when I was sitting at my graduation, as you are today, could I have imagined any of this? Could I have constructed a career path that would have gotten me to where I am now? Did I ever think insoles of all things, would be responsible for my 15 minutes of fame and to create a platform for me from which I could do change, to sponsor fellow female entrepreneurs, to help women in long-term unemployment back into the workforce, and to help charities abroad in sponsoring foot care for children? Did I ever think that I'd end up delivering the graduation address? Hell no. My life, your life, is unlikely to be anything you can currently imagine, but that's not a bad thing. Today you have the technical skills that your courses have given you. The last years have taught you how to think, not what to think. And this ability to reason and to think logically is a skill you should never, ever underestimate. But what you have learnt will be useless unless you put it into practice. Many of you graduating today are in your 20s, Based on average Australian life expectancy, that means you've got a good 60 years ahead of you. And I don't want to see any of you sat in a cubicle with the most exciting thing for your day every day being what you will have for lunch. Yeah? There are many more skills that you will need to develop to move on in your life. But here are 4 that I recommend you start with. 1, curiosity. It's in the uni motto for a reason, and it's there for a very good reason. No one ever invented anything or made the world a better place without being a little bit curious. Work your curiosity muscle often. Don't wait for the big things, start with the little ones. Be like a 3-year-old. Ask, but why? Often. Be a bit annoying. Discover what problems you want to solve in this world. Being curious makes your own life much more interesting and rewarding. It also protects you from becoming old and boring. 2, endurance. You can either approach life as a sprinter or as a long-distance runner. While sprinting makes you feel like you're going places really fast and that you're being really productive, it's not something you can sustain for 60 years. Be more like the long-distance runner. You keep moving forward, conserving your energy and biding your time or going full on as the race demands at any given stage. One of the key differentiators between those who succeed and those who don't is endurance. You've already displayed a solid endurance to get to this, your graduation day. And I would encourage you to think of your career a bit like your thought of uni. Many courses are 3 to 4 years, many postgrad activities 2 years and up. So think of your life in 2 to 4 year chunks. They're chunks of time long enough to create something, to achieve something, but not long enough to lose your focus. If you don't feel yourself moving forward every 2 to 4 years, just stop. Take count. Change your plans a bit. 3, deep authenticity. The world does not need another person popping photos of smashed avocados on Instagram. Yeah? The world needs more individuals. So give yourself permission to be you. The more true you are to you, the more enjoyable your life will be. Early in your career, you'll often feel the need, the want to just fit in. And whilst I recommend that you seek mentors and advisors and in some ways mimic the behaviour of people a couple of years or a couple of steps up the rungs of the career ladder than you, please still show people who you are. Being authentic actually gets easier as you gain more experience, you earn your stripes, you feel more comfortable just being you. 4, generosity. Whilst giving money is great, generosity of spirit is much more important. Globally, you are in a very privileged minority, very privileged. Today, you're graduating from a university that is a top 100 global university. A university that has the luxury of having over 3 million articles in the library. Believe me, you have very, very much to give. Be generous with your words. Say hello to people with equal warmth, whether they're the cleaner or the CEO. Embody the Aussie reputation for being friendly and helpful. Be generous with your deeds. If someone asks you for help, don't give them a roundabout houses answer. If you have the genuine capacity to help, just say, "What do you need me to do?" The group of you here today are stronger and more powerful than you can ever imagine. Grow and maintain your connection with the Monash alumni. As a group, we have the ability to create great change. I firmly believe you create your own luck. So keep moving forward, show up, put in the work, and seriously, the best of luck to you all.